We are live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Maximize Your Life Bible Study. I am Minister Marcus. And what I do, I come on Wednesday nights and I do an online Bible study, and it's designed just to really encourage you or to give you some things to think about, maybe give you a different perspective. And so let's just go right into it. I got three things for you tonight. As you know, we've been moving through the Bible. And so this month we are in Ruth. I missed you guys on last week, but for those of you who are subscribers, there was an exclusive video for you guys, and so man, be sure to check that out every Wednesday night. There will be a Bible study uploaded to our YouTube channel, even if it's not live on Facebook or Instagram, you can still come here and catch the Bible study. All right, so just so you know, every Wednesday night. You'll be able to get you a good 20-minute Bible study. All right. And so tonight I got three things for you. As I said, the lesson is coming out of Ruth chapter 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read uh, uh, a few verses. I'm going to start at verse number 14. And it says, and I'm reading out of Big Green tonight. All right. And it says, and again they wept together, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law Naomi goodbye. But Ruth insisted on staying with Naomi. See, Naomi said to her, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. You should do the same. But Ruth replied, don't ask me to leave you and turn back. I will go wherever you go and live wherever you live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. I will die where you die and will be buried there. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us. So when Naomi saw that Ruth had made her mind up to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the two of them continued on their journey. When they came to Bethlehem, the entire town was stirred by their arrival. Is this really Naomi? The women asked. Don't call me Naomi, she told them. Instead, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made life very bitter for me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why should you call me Naomi when the Lord has caused me to suffer? And the Almighty has sent such tragedy. Verse 22. So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by her daughter in law Ruth, the young Moabite woman. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. All right, and so I'm going to give you a little backdrop before we roll into number one. And what happens is that there was a famine in Bethlehem of Judea, and a man named Elimelech and his wife, that's a Hebrew name, Elimelech. He took his wife out of the famine, and they moved to Moab. Him, his wife, and his two sons. Right, and so for those of you who are unfamiliar with the story of Ruth, he takes them to Moab, and then as the story goes, Elimelech dies, and so it's just Naomi and her two sons. And then the story goes 10 years later. Now, her sons married two Moabite women. And there is a lot of history in that, but I don't want to really go too deep into that because I don't really have enough time. But there is history between Moab and Israel. But they married two Moabite women. And then the story goes 10 years later that the two boys also died. And so now it's just Naomi, it's Orpah, which is one of her son's wives, and Ruth, which is the other son's wife. And so when we pick up in the story, Naomi is telling these young ladies, she's saying, go back home. Your husbands are dead. My sons are dead. My husband is dead. I don't want y'all to be staying with me. I can't help you. So what she says is, go home, go back to your family, and go find you a new husband among where you live, and let me go ahead and go back to my homeland. So you guys go. And so the story goes that this is a kind of tough moment where we picked up. Orpah goes back, but Ruth does not. And so here's what I want to start by saying in the story, that I love that stories like this, that they don't hide the suffering and the sadness of the different people in the Bible. And so stories like this I also love because God is not directly mentioned in the story, right? So we are left, as we do a lot of times in our life, we are left to pick through what happens in our life and try to pick out what God is doing. And so I want to kind of pinpoint that right there, because a lot of times while just like with the story, we don't see God directly in our lives. And so for those of us who are trying to follow God, who are trying to walk with God, who are trying to live the Christian life, we try to go by the situations and circumstances in our lives, right? And try to decipher whether or not this is God, whether or not God is pleased, or whether God is not pleased. But here's what I want to point out about that. I want to point out that the death of her husband and the death of her sons does not necessarily mean that God is working against her. And so I want to point that out, because one thing that did stand out to me is that she took her sadness, and she took her suffering, and she took the death of her husband and her two boys as a sign that God was displeased. And I want to pause, because I want you to understand that the only certain thing about life is death. And we are going to experience death. But somebody dying does not necessarily mean that God has turned against you. And so I want to stress that God has not turned against you. But as you'll see later on in the story, is that sometimes God works through death. And so that's going to be my number one. God is working through this. I want you to say that. Number one, God is working through this. The Bible does not hide the suffering and sadness of people who God used to accomplish his plan, but it does show that God continues to work during the difficult times in your life. And so I want you to encourage yourself by saying, God is working through this. Maybe you have experienced the death in your family. Maybe someone close to you has passed and gone on. But their death does not mean that God is not working or God has turned against you. And I want to encourage you with that, because a lot of times while we're trying to gauge what God is doing, sometimes we get God's activity wrong in our life. And so it would seem like if God is pleased with me, I should be only experiencing good things, or I should only feel good things. But in reality, sometimes God chooses to work through painful experiences in our lives. And so it becomes difficult to just trust that God is working something good when the situation feels bad. And just like Naomi, she views her suffering as a sign that God is not pleased with her. Because the prevailing thought is, if God cares about me, he wouldn't allow me to be sad. He wouldn't allow me to feel this way. But I want you to understand that there will be periods of sadness. There will be periods of suffering. There will be periods of pain in your life. But you cannot let the sadness make you stop believing that God has done working. And I want to point this out to you. Say, God is working through this. I want you to understand that God does not just choose to work while things are going good. God does not just choose to work when things feel good. God does not just choose to work during the good times, but in reality, God works through the bad times too. And I know that's hard to get, but I had to learn, and I understood over time that even while it felt bad while I was dealing with it, that God still worked something good throughout it. And this is why I want to encourage you, because sometimes you can get discouraged based on the things that you have to go through, or the experiences that you have to go through, or the circumstances that you find yourself in. But I want you to encourage yourself with this tonight, that God is working through your situation. I want you to say that to yourself. God is working through your situation. I know it feels bad, but God is still working. I know it's difficult to get through, but God is still working. God's work is not limited to a good or a bad situation, but I'm thankful that God is sovereign enough that he doesn't have to wait until things are going good to be working it for your good. You don't have to wait until it feels good to be working it for your good. And I learned throughout the course of time and experience that sometimes it's a painful experience, but God does produce a good end result. And so I want you to stress that to yourself. I know it doesn't, I know you may be frustrated. This COVID thing is still here. We may be dealing with this or dealing with that, but I want you to understand that no matter what, God is working through it. And so I want you to encourage yourself with that, because what she does is She is sad. She is upset. And because of her suffering, because of her sadness, she feels like God is working against her. But I want to tell you tonight, I want to encourage you tonight before we go to number two, that your suffering does not mean that God is working through you. I mean, that God is working against you, but God could definitely be working through your sadness. He could be working through your pain. He could be working through your circumstance, no matter what it looks like or no matter what it feels like. And the best thing I want you to hear and understand is that everyone who had periods of sadness in the Bible ultimately had greater periods of joy and success. And so all I'm trying to tell you is the sadness has a season, but it will not last forever. And on the other side of sadness, I think a lot of times we get stuck in sadness. But if you were just to remind yourself, right, that God is working through what I'm going through, that sadness is not here to stay, but this sadness has a season. The scripture says that they that sow in tears shall reap in joy. What that says to me is that no matter what it is that you have to go through, that God will not waste your tears. God will not waste your pain. Sadness has a season. Ecclesiastes says that there is a time to weep, but there is a time to have joy and laugh. There is a time to mourn, but there is a time to be glad. And I want you to understand that sadness has a season, but even in the sad season, God is still at work. And so I don't want to get too caught up on that, but we're moving to number two. And so what it is so Naomi tells her daughters-in-law to leave her. And here's what I love about the story of Ruth. And I hope I get to number three because I don't want to go over my 20 minutes. But here's what I love about the story of Ruth. Orpah goes back, but Ruth does not. Orpah goes back, but Ruth does not. Get this, that the story does not give us any specific reason why Ruth chooses to stay with Naomi, but it's clear that she has no intention of going back to Moab. And I think what it is right here in the story, it indirectly gives us a good life lesson. And that lesson is, and we rolling into number two, you cannot allow the issues of life make you go back to things that you have moved on from. So here's my number two: choose to move forward. I want you to say that to yourself. I'm going to choose to move forward. No matter what I have to face, I'm still going to move forward. No matter how I feel, I'm still going to move forward. No matter what it looks like, I'm still going to move forward. Don't allow the issues of life make you go back to things that you have moved on from. And I'm talking to somebody who just got out of a toxic relationship. I'm talking to somebody who just left a bad job, somebody who just left something that was not good for you, somebody who just quit smoking, somebody who just quit drinking. Don't allow the issues of life make you go back to things that you have moved on from, but you have got to choose to move forward. The powerful lesson presented here is you have to continue to move your life forward in spite of the circumstance. And I want you to get this, and I don't want to stay here too long, but cry if you have to cry, but don't turn around. Rest if you have to rest, but don't turn around. Regroup if you have to regroup. Rethink and replan, but don't turn around. And I want you to get this, that obstacles will always happen, but the people who reach their blessings, the people who reach their success, resolve to be resilient enough to keep moving forward. I want you to say, I'm going to keep moving forward. I want to encourage you tonight. Keep moving forward. Obstacles are going to happen, but keep moving forward. Challenges are going to come, but keep moving forward. The giants are going to come in your life, but keep moving forward. And I want you to get this. You got to learn to forget it. This is what Paul says, forgetting those things that are behind. I press towards the mark. Yes, it happened, but it's over. So don't allow yourself to get stuck in it. He says, I press towards the mark. Yes, my husband died, but I got to keep moving forward. And this is what Ruth says. Ruth says, Naomi, I'm not going back to that. And I want you to resolve to yourself right now as you watch tonight that you will not go back to things that you have already moved on from. Just because it's hard right now, that don't mean it's time to turn around. But be like Ruth and say, I'm not going back. I'm going forward. And I don't know where forward is or what forward is, but I do know I'm not going back to where I came from. And I want you to get to a point in your life where you just decide that you're going to choose to move forward no matter what it looks like, no matter how hard it is or how difficult it is, you're going to choose to move forward. Don't get stuck in a certain situation. Even if you may not be able to get over it at the moment, don't allow it to make you get stuck in your life. Choose to move forward. Say, repeat after me. Say, I gotta choose to move forward. I gotta choose to move forward. All right, and so here's the last one right here. Here's what I like at the end of the chapter, and we're only doing chapter 1. I want y'all to come back next week because I'm loaded, but I want you to hear me when I say this. I love at the very last sentence of the first chapter, it says that Ruth and Naomi got there at the beginning of the barley harvest. I want you to catch that. They got there at the beginning of the barley harvest. Now I want you to get it. In Moab, they had experienced some things. In Moab, life had brought some challenges and some sufferings in their life. The past, Moab had taken her husband, had taken her children, had taken Ruth's husband. But when they got back to Bethlehem, they got back at the beginning of the barley harvest. And if you know anything about harvest, harvest time seems this one sentence, the entire chapter was bad, but one sentence lets you know that things are about to change. And this is what I want you to encourage yourself with for my number 3. Say this, say things are about to change. I want you to get that. Things are about to change. The entire chapter was bad, but things are about to change. 2020 was hectic, but things are about to, I don't know what your January and February have been looking like, but things are about to change. I want you to get this, that harvest is a sign of replenishing. And when I see that they come back at the beginning of the barley harvest, it lets me know that I don't know what God is about to do, but God is up to something. I don't want you to say that, say God is up to something. God is up to something in your life. At this point, I don't know what it is. I'm not going to tell you because I know what the story concludes. But at this point, we don't know what's about to happen. But it appears to suggest that God is not through working out his plan for these two women. And I want that to encourage you tonight. I want that to encourage you tonight. Say things are about to change. God is not through working out his plan in your life. And so even if it is struggle, even if it is frustrating, even if it is annoying, understand that God is not through working out his plan in your life. Things are about to change. And I want you to remember that, remind yourself of that, even when you get to the rough roads and the rough patches in your life, the tough times in your life, remind yourself that things are about to change and that God is not through working. If you're still alive, it's a sign that God is not through working in your life. Her husband died, but she stayed alive. Ruth's husband died, but she stayed alive. And it only is a sign that God is not through working in their lives. And so that's all I got for you tonight. I hope something that I said encouraged you. I want you to continue to encourage yourself because we are in a trying time right now, but I don't want you to let yourself get overwhelmed. You have to speak your victory during the tough times. You got to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that I believe that God is going to work something good out of this situation. And so I hope that encouraged you tonight. Once again, I come on every single Wednesday night. I give you 2 or 3 things to think about, and I hope something that I said tonight really was an encouragement to your spirit. And I ask that you do this. If it blessed you, let it bless somebody else. Share the link to somebody who needs it. All right. And so guys, with that, I encourage you to go visit our website, www.thegodmovement.com. See all of the many things that our ministry is doing. You can give to our Cash App. It's $TGMCF. If you don't want to give money, we definitely take certain donations. We give to the homeless care packages year round. And so we just partner with some people who do food and we do care packages. Thank God for partnerships. And so, guys, with that, if you want to be a blessing to our ministry, visit our website, leave it in the comments. And really, that's all I got for you tonight. So I'll see you guys next Wednesday night. And remember, God is not through working in your situation. And so once again, I'm Minister Marcus. Thank you for watching the Maximize Your Life Bible Study. I will see you guys next Wednesday at 8:30. God bless you.